Hello, everybody. Thank you
Hi.
all for being so patient with our little technical difficulties.
I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay.
But,
Okay, I'm done.
But look who's here. Look who's here. Nancy Lee Grahn, Lane Davies, thank you so much for being with us today.
I just said to Michael.
Pleasure, Michael. I love the countdown. I felt like my head should explode or something.
Did you like the countdown? Yeah.
I am not normally, I'm normally on time because I believe that's important. I could not get on this stream, whatever the hell it is, because I assumed this was going to be on Zoom, like most people have, but Michael has to have stream on. So it was 20 minutes of my brother-in-law trying to fix this and me swearing. So, yeah.
You'll never hear the end of this, Michael.
I know. But
trust me, he makes a grudge a life work. I've known her for 40 years.
I've known Nancy for decades. We've known each other a long
time. You know what the truth is? I am not a grudge holder. That is the truth. I am very forgiving of something.
Boy, I am. That's for another day.
Well, first of all, thank you. Santa Barbara is going to have its 40th anniversary the end of July. Unbelievable. You know, it was probably one of the most beloved and coolest shows ever to be on Daytime, and you were both so instrumental to its success and so beloved as Mason and Julia. Well, no, one of the big super couples of the show. Yeah.
Enough about me. What did you think of my performance?
And I remember watching it and I thought, these two are so great together. I mean, the on-screen chemistry was right on the money. And I think you both knew that. But I wanted to ask you, as part of our celebration, Lane, what was your first impression of meeting Nancy? And was it on Santa Barbara? Is that when you first met her?
Yeah. And to be honest, I don't actually remember. I'm old, and I don't actually remember the first meeting with Nancy. You know, because we didn't have matching storylines at that time. I remember looking at the monitor and thinking, "Damn, that's a good match for Louise Sorel's sister." Because they looked like sisters, and they acted like sisters.
Yeah, yes,
and they still act like sisters.
Two nice Jewish girls.
Yeah. That didn't occur to me at the time, but I just thought that's a match. But do you remember the first time we actually met on set?
I have absolutely no idea. I mean, yeah. I don't remember the moment. I mean, you were with Harley. I mean, your character was with
somebody else.
Mary at that point. So we didn't until the sea fell on her. We didn't really have much to do with it.
Until the sea fell on her.
Yeah.
That was in a very undignified way to get to let go of a beloved character.
The sea.
It was to get,
but it was really freaking funny, and that's why Santa Barbara was so popular.
Right, because they did these amazing. They had zany things and just really clever twists and things. Right.
There was humor. There was humor.
We took risks, and they didn't always work, but they weren't shy about taking risks.
It was really fun. When directors at that time, Michael, would come in with no shots on their. Well, Michael Gliona, a director would come in with no shots done, which is difficult to do when you're directing, with 3 or 4 cameras, 100 and some pages, and because he would come in and go, "What do you guys want to do? Let's play." So it was kind of like a soap rep company.
Yeah, we were a lot looser than some of them.
Now, did you petition to work? Did you guys know, at what point did you know that Mason and Julia worked well together? That you had something that would stick? Did you guys know? Did you talk about it? Like, if we continue to do that? No?
I don't know that we talked about it. They set up the characters. It was very character based, Santa Barbara. They created circumstances that would come out of the character that they created and the actor that was playing that character. And I think, Lane, the setup for us was really fun. I mean, it was classic in that he was a conservative. I was a liberal. I wanted a baby. I was a single mother. I had, and at that time, that was 40 years ago, I employed him.
Or imitates life.
To impregnate. I know everyone thinks he's Kate's father.
Yeah. And she's not. I wish she were. I wish I could take credit.
Imitates life. That is so brilliant. But you're right.
But it was a really good setup, and it took a really long time for us to get together. They did journeys back then. Now it's quicker. I think they really don't give a lot of people credit for their attention span, but it was a journey, and it was all based in character, and we were perfectly set up. Not comparing us to Hepburn and Tracy by any, absolutely not. But that classic, these two are going to fight all the time, probably, and be incredibly attracted to each other.
And I think it was kind of accidental and kind of manipulated by Nancy and myself, at least the way I remember it. We were both in storylines that we didn't really love, but they were putting us together for these little bantery scenes, and we liked the chemistry, and so we started. We knew we worked well together early on, so we started just kind of punching up the chemistry. Yeah, and the writers are writing it 3 days ahead or something, so they picked up on that and started writing it, and we just kind of ran with it.
Nancy, you're always playing a lawyer.
I know.
Is that by design?
So I might have become a lawyer because as you know, I have a thing about justice, and I'm a bit of a justice seeker, and I'm also an activist and an advocate for things that matter on behalf of other people, usually. But what's interesting is someone's doing my ancestry, and my great-grandfather, is it my great-grandfather? It's my nana. It's my great-great-grandfather. Aaron Kahn was his name, from Louisville, Kentucky. He was partners with Clarence Darrow. And he was written up, and you can look him up. I mean, he saved 399 people from the death penalty. He was a very well-known, incredibly respected attorney. And so maybe, I feel like it's in my genes somewhere. And so I also play a defense attorney on General Hospital, and that wasn't purposeful. I mean, it just happened to be part of a story. So I think there's something about art and life. I would never have gotten through law school because I'm just not interested in memorizing torts. I'd much prefer memorizing dialogue.
It's too much homework.
But Lane, you're playing lawyers too. So what is it about you that it's like let's make him a lawyer? You'll play a lawyer.
I don't know. I mean, you do have to have a certain facility with language to play lawyers, and because of all my classical background, words come easy to me. So I'm almost always cast as upscale professionals, usually upscale a-holes of one sort or another. I had a whole career in sitcoms just basically playing upscale bad guys, or obnoxious guys. But invariably it was somebody that needed to have some sort of facility with the language.
So is the legalese Nancy, when even on General Hospital before she lost her law license and couldn't practice, Alexis, but now she's getting it back. What did you like the legalese when you'd go into and you'd have all these wordy things in cases? Did you guys like that?
No. It depends, because it's why I would never. I mean, I was offered a procedural on primetime, and I didn't do it because I knew that I wouldn't. That wasn't something that would make me feel satisfied, and it would probably frustrate me. I'm not a big technical person, but it depends what's written. If it's just legalese for the sake of legalese, but I love if there's a great speech. I mean, Patrick just recently wrote some great speeches, or some nice speeches. And I certainly had brilliant ones on Santa Barbara. And so that feels good to be able to have those words that I would never be able to put together so beautifully and say things that are really important, that matter, that have resonance beyond just doing a daily soap opera. It feels good. So, but if it's just legalese and it's tedious and you're representing a storyline that you don't even, a case that you don't believe in really, and you're doing it because that's your job, it's tedious. But when it's good, it's really satisfying.
Ditto, Lane? Do you agree?
Say what?
Do you agree with that in terms of legalese? You like it?
Yeah. I mean, that's the fun thing about lawyers is you generally get to make either fun opening statements or closing statements, so it gives you a chance to flex a bit. Dialogue day after day, page after page can be a little bit tiresome, but when you get to flex a bit, it's more fun.
Was the witty banter that Julie and Mason had, was a lot of that ad-libbed by you guys, or was it literally scripted in?
It was scripted, most of it. We had
really
good writers.
We had such a good team of writers that we didn't have to ad-lib much, we did have our way of sort of putting a funny spin on a lot of it, but for the most part, it was cleverly written. I think there's one reason, people followed the show, after it went off the air for as long as they have. We have, I'm amazed at how many people still watch old episodes of the show. And it's because, it's mostly, the actors and the writers split right down the middle. We couldn't have done it without the writing.
And when you left the show, Lane, Nancy, you were there till the end, correct? I wanted to ask, first of all, Nancy, here it is, 1993, they canceled the show. What was it like at the end for everybody? You had, do you remember that?
Well, it had taken, here's the thing. I had such a good part. And I actually had a couple of offers to do other things. And strangely enough, one of them was shooting in Hawaii. And I strangely enough, I was so, I thought, where am I going to get a better part than this? I might get something else that's on primetime. And I did, but it wasn't interesting. And so I liked my role. I loved my character. I loved playing Julia. And I loved what it brought out in me and what it taught me and how it changed me and grew me. It did those things. But the writing and the heads of the show changed pretty significantly toward the end. So it was not becoming, I could maintain this character. They didn't really mess with the character too much, or I probably, at that point, I did make a fuss if they did. But there were changes that happened that sort of shifted the show into something not special anymore. And so I felt complete when it ended. Was I scared to be out there again? Yeah. Because you get used to that very nice, steady work and paycheck. Yeah. And then, but I did between Santa Barbara and General Hospital. I recurred on Melrose Place and Murder One, and I can't remember, but I worked, so it was fine. But the reason I called General Hospital, it was Wendy Rich at the time, and Michelle Valjean, who's now created the game.
Yeah.
She was a beautiful writer on Santa Barbara, and I said, so I want to have a baby, so. And do anybody interested in me on General Hospital? She called Wendy Rich, and they said, come on over. So that's what happened. Yeah.
And Lane, you left early. You decided to leave.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I left early. I left before it was over. I'd done the show for 5 years, and I did it as much for my own mental health as anything else. I was producing plays and acting in plays and doing some music, and I was just about burnt out. So that's when I quit the show. And at the craft service table, Todd McKee asked what I was going to do. I said, I'm going to go around the world. I'm going to study French for a month and go around the world. Take about 6 months to do it. He said, really? And I said, yeah. I said, you want to go? And he said, yeah. So we got a map that day and around the world tickets that day and took off. But the main reason was just I was kind of at the end of my rope, just in terms of burnout, And also, either Nancy would be dead or I would be in jail, or both if I'd stayed on the show, because we were about to kill each other. Not really by that point. We were getting along again, but
you must have been much more bothered by me. I could easily not talk to you all day long and then act with you. I loved acting with you. It didn't.
But somehow over the years you've maintained a friendship, right? Over all these years. I mean,
yeah, we buried that hatchet a long time ago. It was just,
You know what? We slept together and had a little thing, and that is, actors shouldn't do that. And then when you do that,
never a good idea.
And also, this is our character. I mean, that we got over that, but our characters were not. We were working together 16 hours every day, and both of us were working 5 days a week for almost the whole time. Or 6 sometimes. But Lane and I will go at it still over. I think we were arguing about Shakespeare the other day, or having a little thing. But we respect each other. Lane felt he's very male and I am very female. Very Mars, very Venus, the two of us. And so also my sense of women wanting to be equal, and my character spent way too much time after a certain point just wanting to marry him or putting up with him or making excuses for him. And I went, you know what? This guy's, I don't know if she wanted a family and a relationship and a home. And he wanted to be some, guy this manly guy that just sort of is a gadabout town. And he thought if he got married and was a father to a baby, it would make him weak. And I went, well, so, and this is what we would, this was a thing with our characters and what we were arguing for. And finally I said, I'm not doing this anymore because I am representing women out there and they cannot see this. They have to see her either move on or there have to be some sort of meeting of the minds, some equality of male-female relationship. So Lane was, admittingly, he will tell you, he did not want his character to get married or become domesticized because he thought it would make him uninteresting. So we fought about that to the point where we didn't speak to each other for 8 months, I think, until they counted down.
That was one of several things we fought about. But yeah, that was the biggest problem I had was I went from a guy who would change his stepmother's pregnancy test so that she would sleep with him to a guy that was folding diapers.
You were not folding diapers.
I'm never going to keep my demographic folding diapers. That's not why people like this character.
Right.
So we invariably I fought with one of my favorite directors over the same, over that same scene. That scene is just one example. But that's the one that sticks in my head. It's like I've got, we're showing the most interesting 20 minutes of my 24-hour day, and they've got me folding diapers. That's driving me nuts.
But if a woman's point of view, there is nothing hotter than a man. When Richard wants to have a fun night, he will do the dishes.
Diapers.
Well, clearly he's not folding diapers in my house, but unless I'm in the Guinness Book of Records. But no, I mean it's so hot when a guy does something like cooks or If I
we
saw
should poll the fans to say, would you rather watch your favorite male character fold diapers, or would you rather watch him wash his lover's hair,
Well,
like our
here's one.
famous beach scene?
I want to see the video of where you were folding diapers. I want to see.
You would probably need to ask like Matt Stokes, who could probably name the episode where I was folding.
Oh, okay. Well, Matt, look it up. I want video proof that this Mason ever folded diaper.
Okay, I have a question here. Joey's asking. I really enjoyed the original Capwell children, Lane, Marcy, Robin, and Todd. I thought they were so believable as siblings. Can you speak to us about Marcy, Robin, right, and Todd? Lane, what was it like working with them?
Todd was like working with a giant Newfoundland puppy. He was just relentlessly optimistic, and an extremely bright guy, but just very funny, and what you saw was what you got. Robin came on the show. I think she was 17 or had just turned 18. And would walk into the makeup room at 7:30 after a hard night and still stop your heart. She was so pretty,
and smart, savvy.
And we knew, we knew she was going to be a movie star from the get-go.
That's what
Marcy came on, and with more daytime experience than most of us on the show had. So she was a joy to work with early on.
It was an exceptional.
I can remember asking for an incest storyline with Marcy because I thought she was so good. I just thought to make this up. That's why she went away and came back late, because we have a baby somewhere.
Well, here's the good news, everybody.
Phelps was afraid of that.
I mean, Nancy, Lane, and so many of the original cast are going to be at the Santa Barbara reunion, the 40th anniversary reunion, on August 2nd in Burbank, California, at the Colony Theater. I believe it's from 5 to 10. There is a red carpet arrivals. There's a meet and greet. There's a Q&A. It's like a Santa Barbara fest. And if I understand this, Lane, you're also doing this as a tribute or memorial to Bridget Dobson, who had passed away, who was the co-creator and co-writer. And I wanted both of you to speak about Bridget for a moment as well. And by the way, everybody, there's a link below, if you look in the post on this YouTube channel, of how you can get tickets.
Yes. Lane will do it eloquently. I adored her, and Jerry, I can't wait to see him. I'm very grateful to both of them because they gave me my most precious experience as an actor, and it changed me forever. But Lane was particularly close with Bridget, and he's quite eloquent, and he should please talk.
We had the great good fortune of coming on a show that Bridget had started from the get-go. She and Jerry had rescued several famous soaps when they were in the doldrums, because a daytime audience won't be surprised to hear that sometimes soaps just tank for a while, and then they come back, and then they tank. And Jerry and Bridget were famous for sort of rescuing shows, but this one was their baby from the get-go. They were asked to create a soap, and this is one they created. And Bridget was at the peak of her powers at that time. And for people lucky enough to know her, she was a force of nature. And for us as actors, she was very protective of us as actors. That's why she had the big fights over creative control. She was our mom and our Iron Lady and our Major General all at the same time. That's why Nick Coster and I walked out of the studio one time when they were having the big fights with New World Television and locked Bridget and Jerry out. Nick and I went out with them.
Yeah.
It was, I was going to say, Nancy, so you in 1989 win your first Daytime Emmy. You tie with Debbie Morgan for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Daytime drama series. I
Terrific.
have the clip is long, or I was going to play it for you, but it is amazing, amazing. What do you remember about that night? About the name being called, the tie, representing Santa Barbara, all of that.
Well, first of all, it was also that the people that were in that category. It was Jane,
yeah,
and Robin Mattson and Arlene Sorkin, who was so great on Days. So it was very competitive back then. The Emmys were incredibly. It was a big, it was Radio City Music Hall, and they were very competitive. But there were two things. One, that it was sort of a connection between, heaven and earth, which I'm always looking for, and Elaine knows that quote. There's more to heaven and earth that is dreamt of in my.
There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy.
Right.
And philosophy meant science in Elizabethan times.
Yeah. So I realized that, I had manifested that. So it was sort of a spiritual kind of understanding for me. But the thing that was most precious to me is that I got to acknowledge my family. And I knew how cool, how proud they were, and how excited they were, and to see my parents' faces and my sisters, and that I got to say how much I loved them. And, it was that. It wasn't like, gee, I'm good. None of that actor stuff occurred to me. It seemed to had more profundity than that. I remember specifically feeling those two things.
I remember me, because I love Nancy's work on this show, and I was so happy for her. I loved her on this show. I mean, her work was so great, and Debbie Morgan's fantastic too. I mean, yeah. But I remember, just because I feel I met Nancy while you're on Santa Barbara, and I just remember hoping and wishing and praying that Nancy would get this, because I knew that she had a lot that year. And that scene that I remember, there was this great scene that they used as a clip package, and I was like, oh, I hope it's Nancy. And I'm so glad you got that. The same thing when I talked with A. Martinez. He deserved an Emmy for several years as Cruz, and he finally won the Emmy. And Marcy was so good. There were so many, it was winning Emmys all the time, this show, because it was like the All-Stars. I felt like it was the All-Stars.
Thank you. Very sweet. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. So you worked with Gordon Thompson after Lane left?
Mm.
What was that switch up like for you?
It was so weird, because Mason, was the creation of the Dobsons and Lane, and the character was Shakespearean. The character was so intriguing. It was so easy to be interested in this character as Nancy and as Julia. And so he really left an imprint. They were both different. Both Terry Lester and Gordon were both different, but because the characters were so well constructed, and Lane left such an indelible influence, that they were able to pass it off. It was still a popular coupling. Never the same as with Lane, but they were both also very skilled. And, Gordon had more joie de vivre, and Terry had more of a kind of a wink in his eye. But because it was, like I said, constructed so well, these two characters, that it still worked.
When you came, Lane, when you came to General Hospital as Cameron Lewis, it was 2002, I believe, is the next time you and Nancy worked together. Is that something you guys, did they do that as, oh, here's like a PR thing we can do, or did you guys have a hand in each other being in the story?
I asked. I think they were having trouble. I said, well, It's kind of a guaranteed chemistry. It should be, one would hope. And I remember Michelle Valjean wrote the first scene, and I thought, oh, this is going to be fun. And then they just took a turn with it that made it impossible for there to be chemistry, for there to be for it to be a love story. You know, they had him keeping his, they had him keeping his child from me, my child from me. It really was ill constructed. There's the difference. Like
The
really,
beard thing was kind of a turnoff too.
yeah. And I was dressed like a man.
When they put you in drag with a full beard, it's like, okay.
Yeah, well,
how do we get the chemistry going? Not that I object, to beards, but you and a beard was...
who both knew me from Santa Barbara, and we were like loved each other, and also wanted to kill each other sometimes, but mutual respect with all three of us. But I think I must have said or pissed them off or something, so they said, so let's just make her a man. And I thought, I know they're doing this on purpose. And then, but the thing is I had so much fun doing it. I loved it. I had so much fun.
It was so funny.
She still dresses as a man when people ask the beard and everything. It's shocking.
I was just having a ball. But
it was so fun. I remember it was like, I'm like, well, they keep this going. They kept it going.
It went on a little too long until they went, all right. And it wrecked it for them, because I think they did it to annoy me, and I was having too much fun.
And you had a split personality for a while, and then your baby was dying for a while.
I didn't even understand that.
It was very difficult to get a love story going.
Lane, did you play a split personality on Santa Barbara? Weren't you Sonny Sprocket or
something?
Oh, what was that?
Yes. Yeah. Well,
Las Vegas.
I literally think they did that to keep Nancy and me from killing each other, because that character came about at the time when we were
I kept going upstairs, and I went, Bridget, he looks exactly like Mason. He sounds exactly like Mason, and I'm supposed to not believe that's Mason. I mean, it'd be one thing if
it was ridiculous. I was like,
Lois Lane. How dumb was she?
Oh my God.
Did you like that though, Lane? Was it fun? Or did you hate it?
It was fun. I got to use my real voice, not that it's my real voice anymore, but and I don't think I ever was quite as country as Sonny Sprocket, but it was, it was so much looser than Mason that he was fun to play,
That I remember that was one time I almost got fired. I mean, I'm sure there were, where it got like really, because you were you were having sex with Robin. Your character was having sex with Robin Matson and Gina, and she came. She came to me, and then we were supposed to I was supposed to slap her across the face. And I just went, women don't hit each other across. I was, still new on soap operas. I said, women, I've slapped 50,000 people since then.
Now you have.
But I said, women don't, she's a civilized human being. You don't just slap another woman across the face. It's just, and that was not a fight I was going to win, and nor it was not a fuss I should have made. I should have just slapped her, which I ended up doing. And that's all because of that freaking Sonny stupid Sprocket story.
I just remember,
and some of it comes, and I think, because I can speak for myself as well, but when you're playing soap opera characters, you're together in these storylines, not just for a 6-week shoot somewhere, where trouble can and almost always does happen, but you're together day after day saying, I love you, I want you, and this and that, and you intellectually know it's not true, but you're at the same time the brain can be programmed, so it becomes psychologically and romantically treacherous ground to tread, and it can be hard to separate. It can be hard to separate your TV life from your real life. I can remember being insanely jealous of other men that were brought in as threats to me on the show. I remember, this is going back a ways for those people that know Days of Our Lives. When Suzanne Rogers left Days of Our Lives, they found John Clark sitting on the curb bawling when he realized she wasn't coming back anytime soon. And there was never anything romantically off screen between John and Suzanne, but his TV life, she was his other wife, and he was devastated when she left the show. So all of that works together to make it treacherous ground for relationships.
So we fast forward 20 years and you come back to General Hospital's Fergus Byrne, and there's another thing, and your guys are sharing these scenes together. Now, what happened there, Nancy? Did they say we're bringing him back? Was there a role? How did you guys?
I kept, there's a part that I want to recreate Mason and Julia as senior citizens, right? So, because it was such a satisfying acting experience for me, and I think Lane to a degree, and so you keep wanting, because I also know he can give as good as he gets, and so you want a partner that's gonna, poke you a little, so that that's the fun of it, and I knew he could do that, but the character. So it was pretty straightforward. There wasn't a lot of room to, Lane, explain, to play around.
For fun. Yeah, it was the material was really good, but they weren't trying to recreate Mason Julia.
I just wanted it.
So there wasn't any real humor in it, which makes it a little bit less fun to play.
Yeah. There was so much humor between Mason and Julia, so it was good.
Right. I mean, after what Fergus did to Alexis in court and the deceit, and when she found out about Ava and their involvement and all this stuff, didn't they sit down and have coffee? There was a scene later after the courtroom stuff, and
they cut something. They cut that last thing where there was just a little bit of a wink. So, yeah. I mean, it was there really there wasn't a lot of wiggle room to expand on that, so it was pretty cut and dry. But
right, and we don't know. People are asking. We don't know. Maybe Fergus will be back. I just don't know. We don't know. I'm just there.
Well, I mean, I mean, I think that would be interesting for sure. And but in terms of
come back, Lane, would you come back and reprise Fergus?
Sure. Okay. Sure. I mean, I'm like British actors. You'd have British actors that would do the silliest TV show in the afternoon and then go work for the Royal Shakespeare at night. I just like to work. So I'm not in love with Southern California anymore, but the idea of going out and shooting a few shows, and especially working with Nancy, even though it's almost always fatal on that show for men to work with Nancy.
They do. Every boyfriend I've had dies.
Well, yeah.
It's like the angel of death on that show. So
sorry, I'm so sorry.
I think I'd rather just go in for a few shows, and then come back out before I'm killed again. Because
of course,
being burned alive was not pleasant. My first outing.
Cameron, you mean? With Cameron?
It was Cameron.
Yeah.
Which was actually not my first outing. I did a one day on it back in the 80s.
Oh, I heard that. Yes.
With Sherry Lynn, opposite Sherry Lynn Walter. We had a scene together.
Yeah.
And you were on Days, right, as Evan Weiland? Were you not?
Yeah, I was on Days off and on for a couple of years. I had a surrogate father storyline with Suzanne, but then later they decided that baby was Joe Gallison's and not mine, and so I don't have any progeny on that show anymore. I did for a while, but then they say no, this is Neil's kid. he snuck his, seed in.
Nancy,
I mean, I would love to work with. I love working with Lane. So I'd be thrilled. But I don't know what they're going to do. I think Patrick, who wrote, I think most of the Mason and Julia stuff, was at General Hospital briefly. I think that was his idea to bring. He knew that he could count on Lane to do this thing that was very demanding because it was tremendous amounts of dialogue in two or 3 days. I think we did 6 shows, 3, I don't know, whatever it was. It was a lot. And so he needed someone that he knew could count on. But I think if Patrick had stayed on General Hospital, there might be, there was probably more room opportunity for that. I don't know about now, though. I mean, we'll see.
We'll see. New York Joey 77. I love the comedy between Louise Nancy and Nicholas Coster. Can you speak about those working with Nicholas Coster and Louise Sorel? And
Lane and I actually were one of the few characters that hadn't been on Broadway. That's how great this cast, and Robin. Well, there were some, but I mean, these are Broadway actors. There was nobody on Santa Barbara that did not come from theater or had been trained in theater. And Lane came from theater. I started in theater as well. And so there were, these were trained, very talented people. And Louise and Nick, I mean, they were kind of like Lane and I, where you felt like we must have all been, they must have been married in a past life. Like Lane and I, I'm sure, had several lives together where we've been married and killed each other.
Or brother and sister.
Or brother and
sister.
Yeah. I mean, it was so much fun. It was just so much fun. And it more than fun, it was like a great rep company. There were such talented people. I was always learning and watching and changing, and I was inspired. I was really inspired.
Did any of you work with Dame Judith Anderson?
That was my great aunt.
It was your great aunt?
In fact, it's the reverse. She gave me this little doggie when she was in her later years. I used to go up and take her to the pier, and she'd have a couple of Bloody Marys and go out and talk to pelicans. But when she knew she was coming to the end of her journey, she started unloading stuff, so this was one of the things she gave me, that and a lot of books I got from her. She was a great old girl with some fabulous stories about everybody from, she used to hide Laurence Olivier and Vivian Leigh when they were having their affair. They would stay with her in Montecito. And John Barrymore came over one night to try to talk her into doing Macbeth at the Hollywood Bowl, and raging drunk and, cursing like a sailor. Just, one amazing story after another.
Lane, with this 40th anniversary reunion that's coming up on August 2nd, we're instrumental in putting all this together. Why did you decide you wanted to do this? Because of the anniversary and Bridget?
And that was part of it. I was looking for a fundraising, and all of the money is actually going to go to my little Shakespeare festival back here, which is in its 5th year. We started in 19, but missed a year. So this is actually our 5th year of production, I think. We were looking for a fundraiser, and in talking, last year when I did Jerry's play in Prague and talking with fans like Matt and Kevin, we started talking about the idea of some sort of reunion then. And thanks to Crystal Ayers, it has all come together, because she's the only person I know with the energy to put together 50 aging actors and a couple of hundred fans, for an event like this.
Yes, there's some tickets left, and I think people should really go to the website to go, and it's eventbrite.com, Santa Barbara 40th anniversary reunion tickets. You can get them there, right?
Right.
Lane, wait.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes. I was going to say, who are you looking forward to seeing the most that you haven't seen in a while from the show?
Well, I haven't seen Marcy since
Is Marcy
we
coming?
left the show, and she'll be there.
Wow. I have not seen
Marcy's-
her either.
Marcy's going to be there. She's been through a really difficult time over the past 2 years, but has graciously agreed to come. I've seen fairly often over the last few years, and it's always great to see A, because he's like a brother. I think he saw my King Lear twice last year when it was out in California. It'll be there's a lot of people who will just be fun to see.
Judith McConnell, Robert.
I'm shocked. I haven't. Marcy just sort of disappeared, and that's amazing. I didn't know she was going to be
very
there.
amazing.
How wonderful!
I know. There is a question here. Please share stories about Jed Allan. How was it working with him? Can you, the late great Jed Allan?
Go ahead, Lane. I adore him. I adore Jed. I liked it. I mean, everyone. I love everyone there.
Yeah. I'd gone through several fathers by the time Jed got there, and I'd worked with Jed on Days, and my first reaction was, Jed's going to be playing my father. He's not going to be happy about that, because there wasn't that big an age difference in Jed and me at the time. But I think it just clicked early on. Jed has 2 boys, and so he knows what it's like to be a father and frustrated with your children. And, he was at a point in his career where he had been on Days forever, and I think he felt like he wanted a new direction and wanted to prove himself in another milieu. And so he came out with guns blazing, and it was hard to keep up with him. He was that good, but he was also just a great guy. He had a great sense of humor, an enormous ego. He was easy to tease, and but he had an enormous ego. So you could tease him and you get pissed off for a second, and then he'd start laughing about it. But I don't know. I always said I have nothing bad to say about Jed Allan. We had a great time.
And I rented his beach house for 2 summers, and he had this amazing house on the beach that I wish I had bought in Oxnard. And Kate was created there. So
immaculately, of course.
Thank you, Jed Allan. Thank you, Jed Allan. Thank you, Jed Allan. There's a question here, Nancy. I love the friendship between Cruz and Julia. They had great chemistry as actors, and I like that they kept it as a friendship and did not try to make them a couple. What do you think, Nancy?
I couldn't love A more. He was the easiest person to act with because he was so soulful. I mean, he would, Cruz would say something to Julia and it would just make me cry. I mean, they were such good friends, and it was such a lovely relationship. And that was the thing about Santa Barbara. People had friends and people had lovers, and it was family, and it was all these relationships, and they were all different. It's very cool.
And Miriam is asking, is this true? I remember your first scene together. You are Mason Capwell. Is that what you said?
Is it? I don't know. Miriam, that would be so cool. That would be, You were Mason Capwell?
Did you sound disappointed, I wonder, or surprised?
I don't know. Knowing her, he would have been, yeah. I don't know.
Do you feel, Nancy, that from your time, did Santa Barbara make you a better actress?
Yes. Yes. Undoubtedly, undeniably.
To Alexis, did you feel like you had it all down? You knew the medium better?
Yeah. I mean, when I was I studied with Meisner and Esper for 2 years. Long periods of time, right? every day. And I remember Meisner saying to me, "You're not really what you're learning here. It's not. You're going to have to be older." Because I was one of the younger people that went to the Playhouse. He said, "When you're older, by the time you're like 26, I think he even said 26. It's something's going to sink in a way that you didn't get it before, that you don't get it now." And that's exactly what happened. So I was able, it was almost like a repetition exercise because you're doing it every day, every day, every day. And I was really a hard worker. I would go home and I would, 16-hour day, and then I'd spend the rest looking at the script and, changing or fixing and asking if I can change or fix and thinking. And I worked it was really serious business to me. I was so invested. So yes, 100% it made me a better actor. Gave me the opportunity to become a better actor.
And weren't you Barbara Wilkes on One Life to Live?
I think her name was Beverly Wilkes.
Beverly Wilkes. Beverly Wilkes.
Name. No, but I can't even believe I even remember that. Yes, and I was doing that while I was in school, and I wasn't supposed to be doing it. So I was kind of sneaking it. Yeah. But I did that, and then I was working with Judith Light. So that's a, school.
The great.
I was very young. I was, very young. So I would just watch her and Jerry Anthony. So, but yeah, no, I was learning then, but I was still young. So, but Santa Barbara, kicked me into gear.
Yeah. All right, guys, thank you both so much for going down Santa Barbara memory lane with me. And everybody was so happy to see you both together again.
It was an incredible time, a special, wonderful, and I can't wait to see everyone.
And please see Nancy Lane and the rest of the amazing cast of Santa Barbara live August 2nd, Colony Theater, Burbank. I'm going to adjust the link below with more information when you come back here, and you can find it on my website and at the URL I said before. Thank you both so much. And we'll see you again. Welcome. All right. Nancy, are you frozen?
Yep.
Nancy's frozen.
She's frozen.
She's frozen.
I'm not.
All right. Bye. Thank you, everybody, for being with us.